I'm back. Come on in, come on in. Let's try to get it in. Where's my... So, I'm not going to waste any time trying to get off into this Trump mess and madness. He don't put his mouth on something else again with his sarcasm. I don't know why he think it's cute and funny. I have no idea. He is lame as uck. Believe me when I say it. That he done put his foot in his mouth again, talking about Mueller. Yeah, and the people are not happy. Sound like he has prosecuted him before. You know how he is about people who have called him out on his funky mess. He don't like to be called out on. So let's just go ahead and go in. Try to get caught up. Let's go.
A former FBI director who
I hope
later
y'all
became special
enjoyed the
counsel in
live
charge of investigating Donald Trump's
earlier.
ties to Russia during his first
Russia.
term.
That's why he called him.
On Friday. He was 81
Said he was
years old. The
glad he
cause
was
of death
evil.
is not yet known.
Why is everybody who prosecuted him for his cheating and wrongdoing, they're evil? But is he a saint? He can't be, because he already know he can't. He, per himself, he don't think that there's nothing he can do to make it into the kingdom of heaven. But he has the nerve to call other people evil who prosecuted him, caught him red-handed. Type of mess. Ooh, let's go.
Breaking news. Robert Mueller, the former FBI director who later became special counsel in charge of investigating Donald Trump's ties to Russia during his first term, passed away on Friday. He was 81 years old. The cause of death is not yet known, but Mueller was said to have been suffering from Parkinson's disease for years. Mueller leaves behind a multi-decade legacy where, after becoming FBI director in 2001, he went on to transform the Bureau into a 21st century intelligence service that could protect national security and civil liberties. His work earned him bipartisan praise, working under Republican presidents like George W. Bush, and then later under Democratic President Barack Obama, who asked him to stay on for 2 more years at the end of Mueller's tenure. Mueller would later become a household name when he led a 2-year investigation into Russia's interference in the 2016 presidential election and its ties to Donald Trump. Mueller's groundbreaking work resulted in 34 indictments and guilty pleas, including from Trump's former campaign chair, Paul Manafort, National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, the Deputy Campaign Chair, Rick Gates, and, of course, former Trump lawyer, Michael Cohen. And while Mueller did not conclude that Trump had committed a crime, he famously said of the report, quote, "It does not exonerate him." Meanwhile, Trump reacted to Mueller's death on Truth Social, writing, quote, "Robert Mueller just died. Good. I'm glad he's dead. He can no longer hurt innocent people." But whether Trump likes it or not, Mueller's legacy will no doubt leave a lasting impact as someone who dared to try to hold him accountable. Our friend and colleague Rachel Maddow, host of the Rachel Maddow Show on MS Now, joins us. Rachel, no better person to talk to in this network about this story and Robert Mueller than you. Thank you so much for making time for us. And you certainly know this investigation more intimately than anyone else does. You covered this for years. And as I just laid out there, the investigation did not establish the Trump campaign coordinated or conspired with the Russian government in its election activities. It, more importantly, did not exonerate the Trump campaign and led to multiple convictions and guilty pleas from people that were in his inner circle. What was your reaction to the passing of Robert Mueller and what his passing means for this chapter of Trump's political life?
Well, first of all, Eamon, thanks for having me, you guys. It's a real privilege to be with you on this topic and on this night. There aren't very many people for whom I would say this, but it is the end of an era. I mean, Robert Mueller is the last in a line of people that I don't think we'll ever see the likes of again. I mean, simply just the fact that we had a FBI director for 10 years. And in his case, 12 years, the longest serving FBI director since J. Edgar Hoover, after he was appointed during the George W. Bush administration, then extended by the Democratic president who came after George W. Bush, who couldn't have been more different than George W. Bush, Barack Obama. There just aren't very many figures like that in American public life
that could serve
anymore.
them both.
There aren't very many, and I don't mean this in a sort of personal or mean way, but there aren't many like lifelong rock-ribbed Republican public officials who are most known for their propriety and their nonpartisan competence and willingness to rise both above party and above, I think, personal intention. And so he feels like he's from an older time in our history. But that said, the legacy that I think weighs most heavily now at the time of his passing is what happened after his FBI tenure was done with the Mueller report. There's a reason on a day like this we need to remind people what was in Mueller's report, what were the results of his investigation. And that's because of a failure on his part. That is because once his investigation and his report were concluded, he was just wildly outmaneuvered by a really serpentine attorney general named Bill Barr, who played really dirty pool when it came to the handling and release of the information from Mueller's investigation. Mueller, I don't know if he was blindsided by it or if he thought Barr was a good guy and would be a straight shooter on this, but Barr absolutely buried him in terms of the impact of that report. And given the way that Bill Barr became Attorney General, Mueller and his team should have seen that coming. If they did see it coming, they should have come up with a way to outmaneuver Barr while he was outmaneuvering them, and they didn't. And that bureaucratic failure is the most important thing in American history about the Mueller report, not his findings, but the way they were submarined by a, in my opinion, disreputable, dishonorable set of actions by the Attorney General who handled the release of that report.
Rachel, can you walk us back through some of the most critical findings and revelations from that report? I don't think anyone at this table would disagree with what you described as him as sort of the singular figure. And that's in large part because Trump and his allies have done basically everything they possibly could do to sideline and push out of public life Republican figures who would be willing to challenge him, who would be seen as credible, who would do this work in a straightforward and facts-first manner. And so for people who may have forgotten because of the work that has been done to undermine it, to whitewash it, to make sure people barely remember what is in it, can you remind people what the American public learned through this report and why it still matters today?
Yeah, the findings are pretty simple, actually. And I think that part of the sort of political game that Mueller lost around the release of his findings was making it seem like it was complex or too difficult to explain to somebody on the back of an envelope. But it was pretty simple. They found definite, absolutely conclusive evidence that Russia intervened in the 2016 election to help Donald Trump become president, that the Trump campaign was aware of it and expected to benefit from it, and that they took steps to obstruct the investigation.
It was a whole organized crime.
There were more than 24 people who were charged with felonies. They charged the Russians. They charged the Internet Research Agency. They charged multiple figures from the Russian government and intelligence services. They charged Trump's campaign chairman. They charged Trump's deputy campaign chairman. They charged Trump's national security advisor. They charged a number of people who were associated with the campaign. And those findings that Russia helped, that Trump knew Russia was helping him, and that Trump tried to make sure that the investigation into it didn't proceed unimpeded, that should have been enough, and it really wasn't. And there was an important element of the way that Mueller drew his conclusions, which is that he basically said, under DOJ rules, we don't charge sitting presidents, and if we can't charge him, then I can't really lay out the evidence against him either, because that would amount to an accusation that's unfair to make because he's not able to rebut it in court because we're not going to bring him into court. But I think there were other ways to approach that that would have made it more clear to the American public. And when Bill Barr, as then Attorney General, newly appointed Attorney General, decided to bury and misrepresent the report to the public,
Who's in the Epstein
Mueller's
files.
response was one. It was a letter
just looking,
published, 25 days later, sternly saying, hey, that's not what my report means. But that was kind of the full strategy that Mueller and his team had in terms of dealing with the really underhanded mismanagement, well, not even mismanagement, the underhanded, I think, treatment of this by Bill Barr, and they just got outplayed. Robert Mueller got outplayed by Bill Barr, and that was the end of
he's
what
trying
should have
to
been a
outplay us now, but we
certainly
ain't budging.
presidency-stopping investigation with damning conclusions.
So, Rachel, what do you think Mueller could or should have done to not get outmaneuvered here? I mean, is there an obvious path that he could have taken? And I'm also curious, do we know anything about how Mueller felt about how he was, in your words, submarined? Do we know anything? I mean, he's this cipher. Do we know anything about whether he was resentful of it, whether he was suspicious of it, or he just, went on his merry way?
I don't know. And it would be interesting, to hear from members of his team. It'd be interesting to hear from people who are personal friends of him at a time like this. I don't know if they're willing to talk about that sort of thing. He was absolutely such a paragon of propriety and doing things by the book and by the letter of the law that he would never say how he felt about anything. But, I would also say, and again, it's a little bit uncomfortable to talk about on the occasion of his death, especially for somebody who was such an accomplished and selfless public servant. But I feel like in the Trump era, there have been kind of three big personal reveals, like an aha moment for the public, that were really consequential. One of them was really funny, and two of them were tragic. The fun one was in Trump's first term. I don't know if you guys remember, there was a time when the news cycle was really consumed with the fact that Trump was putting his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, in charge of everything. He was kind of the minister without portfolio in the Trump administration. He was in charge of, the Middle East and healthcare and COVID and the economy. And it kind of seemed like Jared was in charge of anything and everything. And maybe Trump. He was the real heavyweight. There was a lot of real mystery around, well, who is this kid? Who is this guy? Is this the real heavyweight, big brain in the administration? And then Jared Kushner came out and did his first press availability in the first Trump term, and he walked up to the microphones and said, sort of like, "Hi, I'm Jared." And it was this personal reveal where everybody was like, "Oh, we don't have to worry. This is not the heavyweight. This is not the mastermind of who's going on here." That was a really important reveal. The other two were much more tragic. And one, of course, was the presidential debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, where Joe Biden came out and appeared to be very frail and not totally at the top of his game, to say the least, in a way that was devastating politically to the Biden presidency and resulted in Kamala Harris being the top of the ticket for the Democrats. But I would say almost up there was the personal reveal we had from Robert Mueller in 2019 when it came time to explain his findings finally to Congress. And you guys will remember, we opened up those hearings, and here was Robert Mueller, this fearsome former FBI director with this incredible, sine qua non reputation. And he was elderly and frail and halting and spoke in a way that did not convey that he necessarily had a total grasp of the facts, and he misstatements and a small voice and not able to answer things at length. And I think there was a big intake of breath across the country that a lot had been sort of put on his shoulders, and maybe it wasn't the right time in his career to have done that.
Whoa, baby,
Rachel, hearing you talk, I'm just struck by almost what a quaint bygone era
the media landscape seems to be of the circa 2015.
Yeah, you in his diaper.
And then
You
what
in
we
his
learned
pamper
from
eating
the
his
Russia
ass.
investigation about the Russia interference and how they were using Facebook and attempting to suppress the vote
Negrified
and
hero.
influence operations all in the U.S. Looking at it now and looking at the media side of the story and how we covered it, what should we have done differently? Is there anything that you would have done differently? I go back and I think about the release of the Steele dossier by BuzzFeed, which I really supported strongly at the time and I still support. But I just wonder about it. And I wonder about the chain of events that followed and the misinformation. And I would just be curious what you make of the aftermath.
Yeah, it's a really good question, Elise. I mean, when I look back on it now, the thing that amazes me in terms of the way this story has sort of become part of our modern American history, become part of the way we talk about politics today, is that the disingenuous sort of smokescreen efforts from Trump and his partisans were given equal weight to the evidence-based, fact-based, provable conclusions of a professional investigation. And so when Bill Barr and then later Trump came out and said, I was totally exonerated by this, even today, you know, even in the obituaries that are being published today about Robert Mueller and his legacy, you will see people parrot that language about exoneration as if it was in there. Robert Mueller's report, Robert Mueller's investigation famously said, I mean, perhaps not so famously said, that Trump was not exonerated, that they were unable to exonerate him, especially of the obstruction of justice questions, which were laid out in the second volume of that report. And the way that Trump and his team, Bill Barr in particular, were able to sort of pervert the public understanding of that very professional, very sound work is something that was a sort of failure of intellectual synthesis. Like, we as the media and we as a country were not
Come in
able
respectful,
to
or I will remove
hold
you.
enough nuance with those facts to recognize that one of those things was a statement. On the one side, that was a statement of proven facts that were, you know, brought to court and the basis of indictments and tested in our adversarial legal system. And on the other side, it was false assertions designed to muddy up those fact-based findings. And we shouldn't have given those things
And hit
equal
the
weight.
like
But by
button.
simple repetition, insistence, and bullying and menace on Trump's side, those things came to be seen
Please.
as effectively equal takes on the same set of facts. And that is a failure of synthesis. That's a failure of our ability to have a real sense of what counts and what matters. And to this day, we live with the consequences of it.
Rachel Maddow, thank you so much
And
for
he's
weighing in
scared
this
as
evening. It's
hell
so great
right
to have
now.
you reflecting on this elder statesman's legacy and the end of an era.
Okay, I need for y'all to hit the like button. Especially when you come in making smart and sarcastic. Okay. Bubba J, can you hit the like button? Salute, can you hit the like button? You too, Elena. Please come in hitting the like button. I would greatly appreciate it. I kind of feel like y'all coming in to pick. Hi, Ernest. I need to correct some things first. It appears like I did not fully handle my business. How y'all doing tonight? Is my comment smart or sarcastic? No. It was another guy I had to remove. But hi, Ernest. Negrofied hero. Yeah. So I'm just asking respectfully that as you enter in to please hit the like button. And we won't have a problem. It looks like I'm spinning. Are y'all spinning on y'all end? Are we okay to move forward? We had church earlier today, so I'm trying to I'm trying to keep it kosher in a respectful way, but yeah, I didn't complete my process. My bad. Hello? Got to well, no, I'm gonna go ahead and remove you out of here. You're gonna do how I asked you to do. You're gonna leave. See, you can't come here talking that shit to me. I will remove you. Now you're going to do as I asked respectfully or leave respectfully. Yeah, but don't come in here talking smart like you entitled because you have the flag there. I mean, none of that means nothing to me. Let's get that clear. But that's okay. I just fixed it. Yeah, I just fixed all of that. You know, we are grown and we are respectful over here. And we are not cool with people who have great and illed minors who are stealing from the U.S. and endangering the U.S. for another country. So you can stay here as long as you hit the like button and be respectful. Okay? No bullying, no smart comments, because when I get smart with you, you're going to be crying because your feelings going to be hurt. You ain't going to believe Auntie Fee handled you that way. Okay? Okay, so let's go. Y'all been warned. That's all I'm going to say. The frackernackle. Consider winding down war in Iran. You over there making deals because you're losing. You're making deals because you are losing. And you can't handle the truth of your failures. It reminds you of those mashed potatoes on your head that your brother dumped.
A lot to discuss, as usual, in the Middle East with retired Marine intelligence officer, national security analyst, and host of the Strat podcast, Hal Kemper. He's here with me. Hal, I wanted to start with this post from the IDF. They say the Iranian terrorist regime launched a long-range missile for the first time since the start of the Operation Roaring Lion that could reach a distance of around 4,000 kilometers. During Operation Rising Lion in June 2025, the IDF revealed that the Iranian regime has intentions to develop missiles with a range of 4,000 kilometers, which pose a danger to dozens of countries in Europe, Asia, and Africa. Let's make this picture a little bit bigger if we can, this map that kind of gives you an idea of the circumference that can be covered. How the IDF sang this earlier today. What are the implications of a long-range weapon like this?
Well, the implications are big. And the question is, how many do they have? And this one, they fired at Diego Garcia, a place where I used to be stationed way back when. They didn't cause any damage. Nothing happened from it. Obviously, it caused a lot of excitement, I imagine, in Diego Garcia. But if you look at the range span around it, you start to get a sense of what they can cover. They can reach all the way to London, Paris, Copenhagen, Oslo, Warsaw, Barcelona, hitting big chunk of Spain, Italy, Rome, a big chunk of the Mediterranean. And then, they can reach out, obviously, and hit places like Cairo and stuff well within the range span of other missiles. But then I would point out, look to the other side. And what you notice on the other side is they're able to cover pretty much all of India, which is interesting because India has a very sizable navy. India has a vested interest in getting the Strait of Hormuz open. And India potentially at some point may decide that they want to get involved with this. They just made a big statement to India on this as well, that they are within range. So it's a huge capability increase. It's something that we didn't really think they had. At least we didn't think they had it fully developed. And maybe this is a one-off. Maybe they just had one or two missiles and they fired this one just to make the statement. But it's definitely got the whole world's attention.
When U.S. and Israeli forces are targeting launchers, are they able to suss out what launchers are capable of launching
I don't know, something like a drone or a missile versus a long-range weapon like what we're seeing?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, the launchers are such that you can put multiple different missiles on one launcher. It's not always designed to, so you only can put one missile on that tail, which is that's a basically that's a
Middle East
transporter
war
erector
enters
launch
the
system. That's that
fourth
trailer
week.
thing where it pops up and then the missile takes off. And those things
And we
pop
are
out
not
of
winning.
the caves, the revetments, wherever they are. They go up, and then when they launch, we can pick that up on satellites and a variety of other sensor systems because it's like a big explosion when the launch happens. And then the challenge is getting something in there to hit that thing before it gets back under cover where we can't strike it. So, and we've been pretty good at taking those out. So this one, I'm assuming, has probably a different, TEL system because it's that much larger. I may be wrong on that, but they may have designed it so it can work in the same one as the others work on. But I'm sure that we're trying to target that. The question though is how many do they have? If this is, if it was something that they recently developed and they just want to go out there and make a demonstration, there may not be a whole bunch more stuck in the underground missile cities or towns as they call them. But if they have quite a few more, that can be concerning. And as we're trying to get NATO allies to, somehow come down and do some work and help us with reopening the strait and patrolling the strait and keeping it open, the fact that, most of these NATO allies are now within the range of Iranian weapons definitely is food for thought in a lot of those foreign capitals.
Lucas Tomlinson posting something interesting a little bit ago. I wanted to...
What's the fastest way to go viral right now?
Dancing? Doing something crazy? Posting 3 times a day?
Nope.
Bring this to your attention. I think this is 20 different countries that signed on to this. Basically, 20 countries releasing a joint statement, the UAE included in this, condemning Iran and offering to contribute to appropriate efforts, they say, to open the Strait of Hormuz. I'm not going to read the entire statement. I'll read the beginning of it. It's a joint statement from the leaders of the UAE, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Japan, Canada, the Republic of Korea, New Zealand, Denmark, Latvia, Slovenia, Estonia, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Czechia, Romania, Bahrain, Lithuania, and Australia on the Strait of Hormuz. So all of those nations saying they condemn in the strongest terms recent attacks by Iran on unarmed commercial vessels in the Gulf, attacks on civilian infrastructure, including oil gas installations, and the de facto closure of the Strait of Hormuz by Iranian forces. Hal, when we talk about this Strait of Hormuz issue, this is a number of countries that that President Trump has noted in his recent statements as being the countries that he's called cowards in some cases, not protecting the strait, not doing what he wants them to do, basically, which is to defend this territory that ultimately a lot of the oil doesn't go to the U.S., it goes to some of these countries, specifically the ones that are in East Asia that he references here. Hal, when you see a joint statement released by these countries now, are they doing this in direct response to some of the rhetoric that's been coming out of the White House, likely?
Well, I think twofold. Number one is, yes, this is a response to some of the rhetoric. They'd like to obviously temper that rhetoric. I don't think any country likes the President of the United States calling him a coward for not contributing forces. But this is part of the political process. This goes from a hard no to we condemn what Iran's doing and, very vigorously. And it's linking a bunch of Northern European NATO countries with other countries, to include countries within the Gulf, that will say, look, the Strait of Hormuz is a vital interest to keep this thing open. This is part of a step-by-step thing. The next step would be that they turn around and say, we consider this so important that we're going to commit resources or forces in order to assist in this mission of keeping the commerce going. And they can certainly cite the the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea, and talk about the vital sea lanes going through there, that they have to be open for international commerce. And so this actually can cite a United Nations document as the reason that they're in there, saying, hey, we're just supporting the United Nations and keeping these vital waterways open and to keep commerce going. And that kind of gives them a little bit of political cover in what they're doing. They don't have to say, we're coming to the aid of the United States. They could say, well, we're going to coordinate what we're doing with the United States, but we're going to go in there and do this. Now, one thing I would point out, Saudi Arabia has minesweepers. I believe the UAE has a couple, 3 minesweepers they can put into this. So you have countries in the Gulf that have naval forces there that could actually put stuff in the water to make a big difference, along with something they really need are these fast patrol boats to go after all these small Iranian boats that might be zipping in and around there. So they have some stuff there. And then you have other countries. Now, Japan has a pretty good-sized Navy, and they have a number of minesweepers, so they can put those in there. I imagine that South Korea could probably spare a minesweeper for this mission, along with some other types of naval craft. And then, of course, if the European allies come in, you could end up actually having a pretty busy minesweeping enterprise going on down in the Strait of Hormuz. And if that was happening, I think we could keep the strait open, get commerce moving, and everybody benefits from that.
We're looking at video on the screen right now. CENTCOM every day has been posting new videos of their war ops. These are some of the videos they've posted in the past 24 hours. Earlier today, Hal, the UK denounced what it called Iran's reckless attacks after ballistic missiles were fired toward the joint US-UK Diego Garcia military base, as you alluded to. The base is in the Indian Ocean, Hal. What is the significance of Diego Garcia being targeted in the UK, directly saying this is some reckless behavior?
Well, this is British Indian Ocean territory. Even though they've signed an agreement that it'll eventually go over to Mauritius, one that the U.S., and I should say President Trump in particular, has been very critical of handing this territory over. This is sovereign territory of Great Britain. So they have fired on this sovereign territory, 4,000 miles or 4,000 kilometers away from from Iran.
Thank you, Janet.
Previously, Hezbollah, which is their big proxy in Lebanon, had fired on British air base, one or two British possessions, or bases, I should say, in Cyprus. And I should mention that in Cyprus, the British bases are actually sovereign British territory. It is kind of a quirky thing. We don't do that, but they do. They actually make those bases sovereign territory. So technically, Iran has fired on territory of a NATO country. In fact, Hezbollah, their proxy, had earlier fired on territory of a NATO country. And of course, Iran has been firing missiles. So far, all have been intercepted, as I can recollect, going into Turkey, which is also a NATO country. So this is there's a lot going on here on the political side in terms of what's going on. And then the other thing I would also point out, and I'd be remiss if I didn't, Saudi Arabia, which has been viciously attacked by Iran, does have a mutual defense treaty with Pakistan, that big country that sits to the east, which also has a lot of nuclear weapons, I should mention. Not saying they're going to use them, but they have them. But they do have a mutual defense treaty. So that is a bit of a wild card. This whole thing is, will the Saudis implore the Pakistanis to weigh in on their behalf? And by the way, Pakistan has a pretty good-sized Navy as well, and they could contribute forces for opening up the Strait of Hormuz along with everybody else.
Iran says that the U.S. and Israel have struck Natanz uranium enrichment facility in Iran. We were talking about that exact area back in June when that 12-day war happened. What's our understanding of what's been going on at that location in the time between the 12-day war and today's events?
Well, as you may recall, it was, quote, obliterated, unquote.
Lies.
The thing is, even if it's, taken offline, everything's destroyed, deep down in those revetments might still be containers of highly enriched uranium. And I'm assuming that the reason that was hit again was there was probably activity, Iranian military or some sort of Iranian activity at that site, which was a base that kind of supported a presumption or an assessment that the Iranians are trying to get their hands on that enriched uranium. Now, would that mean the Iranians are trying to build a nuclear weapon with that? Well, 60% enriched, I don't even know if they have the capability to, even though it's not a huge hurdle, I don't know if they have the capability to take it from 60% to the 90% range where it can be weaponized. But that's a lot of very radioactive material. And you look at all the drones and all the ballistic missiles that they have been firing across the Gulf, over into Israel, and they just tried to hit Diego Garcia. And you can imagine if they were to take radioactive material and use that in around the explosives, they could create quite a dirty bomb, which is a radiological dispersion device.
Oh, another one of our jets went down.
Basically,
Fighter jets.
cover an area with radioactive material that is dangerous, hazardous, costing an evacuation. And if they were to do RDDs in places like Doha, Dubai, Riyadh, Tel Aviv, you name it, that could be incredibly disruptive. That could really slow down a lot of what we're doing, and it would literally change the political math of the entire Gulf. So I'm sure if they caught any activity there, they're going to, as you saw, try to destroy that activity as quickly as possible to simply avoid any possibility that the Iranians get their hands on this radioactive material that they could then weaponize.
It seems President Trump is keeping his options open in a lot of ways. The press continues to ask him what his future plans might be for Carg Island or
eating
for the
all off
potential
into
of
his
any sort of
get out that
ground
diaper.
operation as it relates to the war. The president
making
not
him think he
confirming or
doing
denying what his future plans
while
are.
he over there begging behind the
Hal,
scenes.
what are your big questions in the immediate term? What are you going to be looking out for the rest of the weekend and early next week?
Well, I'm going to look at two things. I think the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit out of Japan should be arriving in the Gulf of Oman pretty darn soon, within a couple, 3 days, if not sooner. That's a big one. The other one is the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit that's coming out of San Diego. That is steaming over there. That's going to take a while to get there, but I am kind of curious how fast they get on station. And then there's one that I don't think has been ordered to deploy, but they could be. We don't have the huge naval presence that we once had off of Venezuela. But one of the things we do have is we have an amphibious ready group with the Marine Expeditionary Unit the Atlantic that is down there. That right now they've just been doing training and exercises, but that's also something that potentially, depending on what's happening in the Caribbean, the president could decide to move that over to U.S. Central Command's area of responsibility. That would be a very, very capable, potent force. That's something where they could land and take some of the smaller islands. That's something where they could potentially even mass
Why is
all
everything
these
always about
these
taking
somebody's
island? They're trying to take.
Clark Island.
They stealing.
So there are things that are going to open up in the near future, possibilities depending on how this war goes. That the U.S. could put boots on the ground, and the U.S. could do some things that would put the regime in a very, very, very difficult position.
Hal Kemper is the host of the Strat podcast. What's coming up on Strat, Hal?
Well, I'm going to be talking more about the Middle East. And, my last one was talking about the Strait of Hormuz. Actually, this one I'm going to focus a bit of time talking about the supply chain disruptions. We're going to look at what this is doing for liquefied natural gas. Obviously, what it's doing.
What
for
is
oil.
it doing for the
Also
average man and woman?
There have been
you don't care nothing about that
price increases in fertilizer, and a lot of fertilizer comes out of the Persian Gulf. Obviously, because the oil and natural gas capabilities there, but the oil, I should say.
China said no.
That has had a big impact, and it's having.
So while he over here talking this talk, you can always count on them to skip, hop around me, jumping around like it's some fire rocks under their feet. Don't want to get caught, but ain't really telling the truth, and what they're saying is not helping the commoners. And I know that ain't what they about, but they need to be about that business. Middle East working team, yeah, they not playing with us. But hold on, so why he over there saying this, that, and the other?
Out the window.
His partner Trump begging behind the scenes. Please, come on. I don't want the U.S. to know. Let's just keep it, shh. We don't want them to know that Bibi Netanyahu is gone. We don't want them to panic while there's a war, but please help me. Shh. And then you talking to that Japan lady, that Japanese prime minister. She said, I'm finna get it. She said she ain't never coming back playing up. I was finna say something ugly, but we had such a good live earlier. I would try to be cool. But y'all hit the like button. Let's go. Make me sick. He made me sick too. Let's listen.
I'm quite honestly just stunned right now by the news of the United States lifting sanctions on the country of Iran. Just think about this. We are lifting oil sanctions on the country that we are currently going to war with. Because Donald Trump's global backfire hit oil markets so hard that he is desperate for any sort of relief. Desperate. At the same time, Donald Trump is out there on the White House front lawn claiming that we've won this war already. Lying. He said for like...
I mean, I ain't gonna disrespect the fellas, but, you know, saying one thing in this ear and something else in the other. Just lying. Faking the funk. I mean, faking the funk. So, yeah, fake it till you make it. That's what he doing. Yeah. Yeah. You over here giving deals, begging. I'm sorry you like him. You like pedophiles. I mean, that's all it is. You like people who lie to you. You know, I mean, you know, it happens. It happens until his lie affects you personally. Then it's going to be, oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Yeah. A lot of people don't, you know, they only care about themselves and, and don't think about the effects that it's going to have on their kids and they elderly parents and all that type of stuff. But, you know, I'm not here to debate that, but I'm not here to not express how I feel. And I'm going to, Hannah, express to you now, I don't feel the way you feel. So when I start saying something negative, you know, just go ahead and leave instead of trying to debate with me, because it's not up for debate how I feel. You know, my heart goes out to every one of those minors that expect the ones that have FBI statements that was great, and some of them were unalived. No, it's a no for me. And he's a thief, and he's a liar. He's lost how many cases? Oh, hold on. Let me get over here. I'll be back, Adam, baby. Because this man over here, yeah, and I can't get down with nobody who is okay with eating babies, allegedly. Yeah, no, it's a no for me. I'm not attracted to any of that. But y'all, do y'all know he has lost let me see, is it 700? I don't want to misquote it, so let me scroll on down here and find it. I was going to mention it earlier today, but is it 7,000 or 700? Yeah, I don't know where my voice went. Oh, I was trying to let you make it. Oh, but old Janet, baby, she plays no games. Hold on, let me find it. I know I had it over here. I think it's 7. I know which one of my guys is talking about it. I know where to go. 7. Is it 7,000 and hold on. I don't wanna lie. You see how I just stopped myself so that I won't give the misinformation. Hold on. You know, he'll make up a whole song and dance, a whole big old lie. JR said, bye, Hannah. See ya. Wouldn't want to be ya. You know, oh, well, cuz Yeah, 7. Whoa. Whoa is the title. Whoa, Jack.
A snake jumped up and bit you?
Hit the road,
Events
Jack.
from the ice off.
Hold on, let me back you up. Shout out to Ben. Ben said, let me make you a little smaller, Ben. I don't want to put you hard. Yeah, 7,000 cases Trump has lost. He's a loser. Loser. Loser.
Donald Trump and his corrupt and incompetent Department of Justice have lost more than 7,000 immigration detention cases in recent months. Now, as the Trump DOJ has either fired or lost via resignations over 7,000 lawyers and top staffers,
and have
they've
lost
also
lawyers.
lost
They don't want to fool with him.
7,000 immigration cases in these recent months. As Kyle Cheney explains, increasingly what the DOJ
and
is
Tisha James been wearing his ass out,
and how they are losing is that they have no argument at all to even present to the court.
Yeah, I can't respect
the
that.
facts out there.
I just can't respect
secure
that.
the affidavits.
I can't respect
ICE officers who engaged in these detentions, and they can't find lawyers who can even work on these cases. So increasingly, when you look at some of these orders from the federal judges and what's being included in these legal briefs, you have this, for example, on January 23rd, 2026, respondents filed an answer to the petition stating, quote, respondents do not have an opposition argument to present. Or how about this? Undersigned counsel.
They know they don't have no argument. Their plan was to slide them out in the middle of the night and send them to these foreign countries so that they can be taken advantage of, and they won't have any documentation, so that they can take their blood, they can grape them, sacrifice them to the big ass owl, whatever, owl with horns, some creature from the Black Lagoon, yeah, and they'll never be found again, and they just disappear. Our government, our top officials are disappearing people, some of them legal. Some of them were going through the process. They don't care. They was just trying to get free labor. They're trying to get that slave mentality. They're going to put them to work. Yeah. That's a lot of cases in 2 months. A lot of cases. Waste of taxpayers' money because y'all already have a plan in place to steal the people, steal the money, steal the land. This is the steal administration. Start a war, steal our military men, steal our kids, our young men, put them on aside missions on purpose for depopulation. Yeah, it's a no for me. Yeah, it's a big fat no.
Unable to obtain documentation from respondents sufficient to provide factual support for a response to the petition.
There has been a lot of missing.
Accordingly, respondents do not.
Some have been grabbed or missing here recently. Yeah.
To receive a bond hearing at this time. So what's happening, to be very clear, is that you have ICE and Border Patrol, Gestapo kidnapping people off of the streets, throwing them into detention centers, which look and feel a lot like concentration camps.
Yeah.
Once these migrants, or in some cases citizens, are able to hire lawyers, they file what's called petitions for habeas corpus to either be released or to get a bond hearing, at which point the government, Donald Trump's DOJ, has to issue a response, and often...
And her ass don't even want to testify allow that her big daddy wrote in, put into play. What type of fracker-knacker bull is that? Huh? Y'all want to deport people for breaking the law, but here the Department of Defense is doing what? Breaking the law. Our president is doing what? Breaking the law. And now why are we detaining people? Why do we even pull people over for speeding? Because they breaking the law. Exactly. I thought they said nobody was above the law. I don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, I do, but I don't. Y'all should have left them kids alone if y'all were not going to be man enough or woman enough to stand in the paint and deal with the consequences that came with you robbing these minors of their innocence. You're absolutely right, hippie gypsy. They sick too. So, I'm sorry, Charlie, don't come in here.
Times the response says, we don't have a response.
Expecting
We don't know why we kidnapped the person, or there's no response at all. Meanwhile, you have people who have been kidnapped and thrown in concentration camps with those horrific videos that we show you. But when they actually have to be litigated, the Department of Justice can't even provide any facts or any declarations to the court. As Kyle Cheney writes, here are a few examples of cases where ICE detained someone and the administration declined to mount a defense of the decision. How about this individual right here, who was detained by ICE in November, and then she filed a lawsuit seeking a release the administration did not have an opposition to present. Judge Klausner said the following: it appears respondents arrested a chronically ill 70-year-old woman who came to this country to avoid religious persecution
70 years
and applied for asylum, who has lived here peacefully for 26 years and complied with all check-in requirements and other conditions of release, who has no known criminal record and poses no threat to anyone, then kept her in detention for months without sufficient medical care, and they do not have any argument to offer to even try to justify these actions. Or how
Makes
about
no
this?
sense.
On January 26, Judge Cato, a Biden appointee, ordered the release of another Iranian national who had been ordered deported after a drug conviction in 2018, but whose deportation to Iran could not be arranged. ICE detained the man last June, but has been unable to deport him since, so the man filed a lawsuit seeking release in January. The Trump administration's response: at this time, respondents do not have an opposition argument to present. A week later, for the same reason, Cato ordered the release of a man born in the Soviet Union who was ordered deported to Russia in 2005 after a conviction, but whose deportation could not be arranged. How about on January 27th, Judge Dolly G., an Obama appointee, ordered the release of an Afghan man who had been detained for a year while the administration was unable to secure his deportation to the Taliban-led nation or an alternative third country. Once again, the administration had, quote, no opposition argument to his release from custody. On February 17th, a judge ordered the release of a Vietnamese man with paranoid schizophrenia who had been ordered deported after a 2000 burglary conviction, but whose deportation could not be effectuated because of Vietnam's longstanding reluctance to repatriate certain types of nationals. And so, especially when we're talking about the Iranian asylum seekers as well, if they went back to Iran right now, they would be clearly executed right away. And so I don't think we talk enough as well about what happens when Donald Trump has deported some of these asylum seekers. And there hasn't even been a count yet of how many people likely have been massacred and murdered directly as a result of the Trump regime trying to override their asylum claims. But in these examples that I've given you here, the Trump regime hasn't even mounted an opposition. That's how incompetent they are. I want to bring in Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel and the Talking Feds Substack and the Talking Feds podcast. Harry, it's great to see you. For those who don't know, Harry was also the top federal prosecutor in the Western District of Pennsylvania.
Tell us
He was the United States attorney there, and he was one of the top federal prosecutors in Washington, D.C.'s Main Justice back in the day. Harry, This is unheard of stuff where the Department of Justice does not even have arguments. And to do it on this scale, we're not talking about one or two cases, which, by the way, for the DOJ that you remember, Harry, even one or two of these situations would be a complete and utter stain that would probably rise to the top and say, how did we do this? We kept someone detained for months and didn't have an argument, and everybody up the chain of command would probably get fired for that. But this is happening thousands and thousands of times. Harry, give us your perspective on this.
You need to develop fast. Here's 6 reasons why you need seed. Seed is the best antibiotic on the market, period. It's made with 20.
Yeah, Ben. So first, I want to put this in a broader context. What's going on here? This is one government. Government is taking action, and when it comes time to defend it in court, the lawyers for the government have nothing to say. Now, that should really indicate that what the client, this is ICE, is doing is flawed, is wrong, needs to be reformed. There needs to be a policy intervention, because how can it be that what's going on, that one government agency comes in and literally DOJ is silent? Now, more broadly,
I'm going to move on back to Adam. I just came over here to show that he done lost 7,000 cases. 2 months. A lot of them are them immigration, but some of them are personal. Yeah. Him and his sons, and son-in-law and daughter-in-law. I mean, in his daughter, not in her, Obama. So let's get back to these deals that he's trying to make.
I'm quite honestly just stunned right now by the news of the United States lifting sanctions on the country of Iran. Just think about this. We are lifting oil sanctions on the country that we are currently going to war with because Donald Trump's global backfire hit oil markets so hard that he is desperate for any sort of relief.
Trying to hit
At the same time, Donald Trump is out there on the White House front lawn claiming that we've won this war already.
Lying.
He said for like every 3 days since this war has begun, he said the war is over. I swear, like a week ago he was saying it's winding down. 10 days ago he was saying it's over. 13 days ago he said in and out, it'll be done soon. But as he's saying this, you have to look at what they're actually doing. What they're actually doing is mobilizing thousands more troops to the Middle East for a potential ground invasion, which would be impossible due to the geography of Iran. If you look at what they're doing, they're asking for $200 billion more from Congress so the Pentagon has money to fight more wars. You know what's funny? They said we had no money for healthcare for a while. We even shut the government down because healthcare couldn't be funded. It was, quote, fiscally irresponsible. But any calculation of fiscal responsibility goes
sending all this money over there.
Directly out the window when it comes to bombing school children in Iran, when it comes to funding endless wars. I mean, it's also worth mentioning they said we didn't have money for Ukraine for years. Well, now we have money to fund another endless Middle Eastern war. I think protecting our European allies is more important. And now Trump wonders why those same European allies don't want to help us when we've abandoned them repeatedly.
He had won
we're going to break all of this down, including the insane series of events that's happened over the past 24 hours or so. Make sure you drop a like. Make sure you subscribe to the Adam Mockler feed to help us get to 2 million subscribers. Make sure you watch until the very end of this video. It means the world to me. And let's just start here. Barack Ravid says, the U.S. is now going to allow Iran to get $14 billion in oil revenue. This is a huge financial concession.
So he done gave Bibi Netanyahu brother that a cousin, his cousin, that they don't want folk to know is his cousin, the Argentina, Javier Milanovsky, but he shortened his name to Malai, because he's a liar. He gave him $40 billion for their foreign life and betrayed the U.S. You got him giving all that money to Bibi Netanyahu, but we can't get no assistance. We don't need it. Just the people that he's in business with. Let's go.
To Iran by the United States. It is the first time the United States is buying Iranian oil since 1996, and happening in the middle of a war against Iran.
I thought he
As
said
Jody
we had
points out,
plenty.
going to war with a country, then immediately
I thought he
floating
said
the
we had
idea
plenty.
and actually executing the idea of
this
the
lying.
United States is buying Iranian oil since 1996, and it's all.
So can somebody who's in love with him explain to me if he gonna buy from him? Why did he bomb him? If they are such a threat, have been for years, huh? Oh, he have to. Yeah, cause he losing and he looking bad and he don't want that L. He don't want that letter on his back. Yeah, I like Adam. Why? I thought they were the enemy. I thought they were about to bomb us. I thought that they were. We had to do it. Why you lowering sanctions? Why are you giving them U.S. dollars? Help me understand. But you're steady sending our troops. It's not our war. Hey, Big Pressure. Diesel should not be $5 a gallon. I thought he just said the other day that we had plenty. Because I remember saying, well, if we have plenty, why the prices going up? So, I mean, I don't know if he needs to change his medicine, his head. I mean, is he taking all of oregano to kill them parasites? I mean, come on. Get them parasites out of the brain area because it's off. This don't make no sense. 1 minute, he popping his Steve Harvey collar saying, I don't need no help. We got plenty of, we cool with it. Price is still going up, and now you begging for them to stop. You making deals for them to stop this war that we should never have been in because it's not our beef, but because Bibi Netanyahu really is unalive, you lost. And the guy who replaced him, Ashahalabi, whatever his name is, yeah, he don't know nothing about none of that stuff. All he know is I thought we were in the war. Are we? I mean, what we doing? Do we need to knock all that down? Oh no! Shh, chill, man, chill. Now you want him to chill. You done got BB knocked off. You got all of these AIs coming up in here. These lookalikes and clones and stuff. That clone, go! Huh? What we doing? You confusing the clone. That's why we saw one that other that looked like his brain cells. Whatever they use, getting a charge and a boost, his hand on his fingertips and shit, like he's smoking some special kind of cigarettes. What are we doing? I'm asking. What are we doing? Yeah, you selling out the United States. And you trying to figure it out. Because Bibi Netanyahu is out of here. So your big daddy can't tell you. You still don't want us to know, because that means 2 L's. I got Bibi Netanyahu unalive. Yeah, absolutely. You let him talk you into it, and you was gonna let him lead you and guide you like he your God or somebody. Yeah, and now your God is gone. Special kind of cigarette. Yeah, he got to put his hands on what? Rest to charge you up, because the other day it looked like you had a circuit shortage. I don't know how y'all operate. Are you a clone? Are you a reptilian? What are you? Yeah. Oh boy, out of here. Hold on. I'm
a man who shaped decades of conflict,
power and survival in the Middle East has fallen. Size.
Down.
But this is not just the end of one leader. This is the beginning of something far more unpredictable and far more dangerous. Because when a figure like Benjamin Netanyahu disappears from the center of power, the silence he leaves behind is never empty. It gets filled
Trump sick as a dog.
By fear, by forces that were waiting in the shadows.
He has to double up. Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. He has to double up.
Not chaos.
Put on panty liners in his diapers and all of that type of
stuff.
stuff.
Pressure in place. Now ask yourself.
Shitting all on
what
himself.
happens when that control is suddenly removed? Do old enemies stay quiet? Do fragile alliances survive? Or does everything begin to shift all at once? If you want to understand how power really shifts in moments like this and what it means for the future, make sure you stay with this till the end and follow for more deep insights like this. The sudden fall of Benjamin Netanyahu creates more than a leadership gap. It disrupts a system that revolved heavily around his authority, experience, and political dominance. For years, he functioned as a central stabilizing force within Israel's complex political landscape, managing coalitions, influencing security strategy, and shaping international relations.
Extra wings.
When such a figure exits abruptly, the vacuum is not simply about replacing a leader. It becomes a struggle over direction, identity, and control. Competing political factions begin to assert themselves, often with conflicting visions for governance, security, and diplomacy. This internal competition can slow decision-making at critical moments, especially in a region where timing and perception are everything. At the same time, institutions that once operated under strong centralized influence may experience uncertainty as new leadership attempts to establish authority. This transitional instability does not remain contained within borders, as both allies and adversaries closely monitor the shift, interpreting hesitation or division as opportunity, which can amplify tensions beyond the immediate political sphere. Regional alliances in the Middle East are often built less on trust and more on shared interests, temporary threats, and shifting calculations of power. The fall of Benjamin Netanyahu introduces uncertainty into these already delicate arrangements because many relationships were shaped specifically in response to his policies, strategies, and leadership style. Some neighboring states had aligned quietly or openly based on mutual concerns such as security threats or regional rivals. But without that consistent figure, those alignments may begin to loosen or recalibrate. Governments start reassessing whether previous agreements still serve their interests or if new opportunities have emerged. At the same time, rival powers may attempt to pull countries into different spheres of influence, offering incentives or exploiting hesitation. This creates a fluid environment where alliances are no longer fixed, but constantly renegotiated in real time. Diplomatic signals become harder to interpret, and even small shifts in tone or policy can trigger broader realignments, increasing unpredictability across the entire region. Internal divisions within Israel are likely to intensify because the departure of Benjamin Netanyahu removes a figure who, despite controversy, acted as a unifying anchor for certain political blocs. Israeli society is already deeply segmented across ideological, religious, and security perspectives, and without a dominant leader to consolidate support, these divisions can become more pronounced. Political parties that once aligned under a shared leadership may begin to fragment, each pushing its own agenda more aggressively. This leads to coalition instability, where forming or maintaining a government becomes increasingly difficult, and frequent elections or leadership struggles become more likely. At the societal level, disagreements over national identity, judicial authority, and security priorities can spill into public discourse with greater intensity. Protests, political polarization, and competing narratives may grow stronger as different groups attempt to shape the country's direction. In such an environment, consensus becomes harder to achieve, and even routine governance can slow down as internal disagreements take center stage. Neighboring states and non-state actors often interpret sudden political transitions as moments of strategic opportunity, and the fall of Benjamin Netanyahu can trigger exactly that kind of recalculation. Governments across the region closely watch for any signs of hesitation, reduced coordination, or shifts in military posture, using these signals to test limits without immediately escalating into full confrontation. This can take the form of probing actions, diplomatic pressure, indirect conflicts, or limited engagements designed to gauge responses. At the same time, non-state actors, who are typically more agile and less constrained, may become even more active, seeking to exploit uncertainty to expand influence or challenge authority. These groups often rely on moments when centralized control appears weaker, allowing them to push boundaries in ways that might have been too risky
Don't
before.
watch the
The
news.
situation becomes
Don't
increasingly
watch the stock
complex
market.
because each
Don't
action
even watch
invites a
regular
reaction,
gasoline
creating a chain
prices.
of
Watch
calculated
diesel
moves
prices.
where even small
That's what
misjudgments
moves
can
the
quickly
needle for
escalate
everybody.
tensions across multiple fronts simultaneously. Global powers rarely remain passive during moments of regional instability, and the fall of
Why?
Benjamin
Why pressure?
Netanyahu immediately draws attention from influential actors such as the
that's
United
the most
States,
expensive
Russia,
gas.
and China.
I
Each
wonder
of these
if they
powers
put
has strategic
tariffs
interests
on
in the Middle
his
East,
tennis
ranging from
spray.
security partnerships and energy routes to geopolitical influence. When a key leader exits,
On
they
his
begin
diapers, too.
recalibrating their approach,
His
often
pull-ups.
increasing diplomatic engagement to
And his
shape the
panty
emerging
liners.
political landscape in their favor. This may involve supporting certain factions, facilitating
BB,
negotiations, or applying pressure to prevent escalation
They don't
that
want
could
us to
threaten
know.
broader stability. At the same time, these interventions are not purely stabilizing. They are also competitive.
Well, they showed
as
us the
each
video
power
of
seeks to
the
expand its
collapse.
influence relative to others. This creates a layered dynamic where local developments are intertwined with global rivalries, making the situation more complex and sensitive to external involvement, where even diplomatic gestures carry deeper strategic implications across the region. The psychological impact across the region following the fall of Benjamin Netanyahu can be as significant as the political consequences, because perception often drives behavior in volatile environments. For many people, leadership figures symbolize stability, predictability, and a known pattern of response, even in conflict. When that figure suddenly disappears, it disrupts the mental framework through which individuals and communities interpret events. Citizens may begin to feel uncertainty about security, governance, and the future direction of the state, which can lead to heightened anxiety or defensive attitudes. In neighboring regions, populations may also reassess their expectations, either sensing opportunity or fearing escalation depending on their perspective. This collective shift in mindset influences how societies react to news, rumors, and political signals, often amplifying emotional responses.
Yeah, that's
Public
why every
sentiment can become
time
more
I buy
reactive,
groceries,
less
I get a
patient,
bunch
and
of
more
water.
polarized, creating an atmosphere where narratives spread quickly and shape reality on the ground, reinforcing instability through perception alone. This moment is not defined by the fall of Benjamin Netanyahu alone, but by the chain reaction it sets into motion across power, alliances, and perception. What once felt structured now becomes fluid.
Pinto
What once seemed
beans and
predictable now
jasmine
turns
rice.
uncertain. And
Big
in that
bags.
uncertainty lies both risk and transformation. The Middle East does not move in straight lines.
I got
It
my
shifts through pressure,
generator,
reaction, and recalibration.
solar generator.
And this is one of those rare turning points where every decision carries amplified consequences. Leadership will be redefined, alliances will be tested, and the psychological landscape of the region will continue to evolve under the weight of this change. What follows will not be immediate clarity, but a gradual reshaping of realities, where new forces emerge and old assumptions fade, leaving behind a region that must adapt to a future no longer anchored by the past.
Yep, BB is out of here. So let me finish on up Adam. Let me back up a little bit. Yeah, I got my generator yesterday, solar generator, just in case they have that outage that may or may not be. You know, right now what's going on, I better be prepared and have some food that I can. And I think did I order one of them little camper burners, like you can put a little pot of something, boil you some water, or boil you something to cook them beans and rice. Yeah. My little funny, I don't want to say bougie because I'm not bougie, but here I am looking at some pink grits. To have something a little tasteful in case we have an outage, you know.
Iranian oil since 1996, and it's all happening.
I'm trying to prepare myself.
1996, and it's all happening in the middle of a war against Iran. As Jody points out, going to war with a country then immediately floating the idea and actually executing the idea of lifting sanctions on that country's oil to prevent your own economic collapse is a definition of strategic failure.
Whatever y'all do, please don't get that cocktail in your arm.
Great way to put it. I think that strategic failure is almost understating what is happening here. This is not strategic failure. This is global humiliation.
Yes.
In one of the most insane, grandiose ways we could possibly see. Trump kept saying he was going to assemble a coalition of ships to escort him through the strait. Then he realized, wait a minute, all of the countries I'd rely on, I bullied relentlessly for years. And as countries denied and said, we're not going to help you go on a suicide mission, we saw that inflation in the U.S., or implied inflation over the next few months, began to spike. We haven't actually gotten a new inflation report, but investors are now betting overall U.S. inflation will go above 5%. Implied inflation rate from 1 year break even. We would have the highest inflation in years.
It's going to get ugly. Saw some about a
and I just want to
zombie
back up for a second,
alert,
because I think people oftentimes forget.
At
I don't say
the
this
police
enough.
department, those little pamphlets, and I know, I don't know. I kind of assume that it was talking about drugs, but we don't know in that cocktail if when they allegedly hit a switch, is it gonna take folk out that got the shot in the metals and stuff, or reactors to what they put in the arm, or is it gonna leave you walking around like you what is that show? Oh man, what was that show of the dead, Walking Dead? But I know I showed y'all yesterday where in the police department, where in the records building, because they had evictions and constables and all that stuff, one of those pamphlets talked about zombie alert. Yeah, no. So yeah, pressure. Maybe the Walking Dead may have to shoot a zombie down. Not shoot, lay him down, spray him down. You know, spray him with some Lysol. Lethal Lysol. Yeah. I mean, you know, I got to do what Lord please. Because once I start unloading, you know, I'm going to be too scared that they're going to pop back up. So I'm going to unload. Have a clip in my bra. My good bra. Have an extra clip in the girls. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't repeat this enough, that all of this was completely unavoidable. Not in the sense that we didn't have to go to war in the first place in this specific war, but in the sense that we actually had an agreement already laid out, and the reports are we were inches away from another agreement before Donald Trump blew it up about 22 days ago when this war started. Already laid out.
That's why they don't want no peace.
All of this was completely unavoidable. Not in the sense that we didn't have to go to war in the first place in this specific war, but in the sense that we actually had an agreement already laid out, and the reports are we were inches away from another agreement before Donald Trump blew it up about 22 days ago when this war started. Qasim Rashid, a really good friend of the show, reports that MSNBC journalist David Rhodes says, quote, Iran offered to give away all of its enriched uranium during peace talks in Geneva. A credible offer. Hours later, Trump started bombing Iran anyway. The U.S. didn't want peace. They wanted war. Donald Trump blew up the Iran nuclear deal, despite Iran's compliance. This was years ago. The JCPOA was negotiated by Obama. He then sanctioned and bombed Iran, claiming he destroyed their nuclear program. And when Iran negotiate and give up all of its enriched uranium, Trump killed 175 Iranian girls, spiked global oil markets, tanked the stock market, has killed thousands more in the Middle East. Hundreds of United States service members are casualties, and all of this was entirely avoidable if we just use a negotiation mechanism at our disposal. The most succinct way you can say all of this is that is an inherently more dangerous place every single day this war is waged, and I truly believe that. I truly believe that lifting oil sanctions on Russia, allowing them to strike Ukraine more, is going to backfire in the long term catastrophically and in the short term, because they're funding Iran. They're helping give intelligence to Iran. I think that lifting oil sanctions off of the country that we are going to war with is perhaps one of the dumbest strategic things you can possibly do, and that is a situation that we find ourselves in. We find ourselves in a situation where we have a president who will one day say the war is winding down, and then the next day will say that we're just beginning, and then the next day will say that we've already won while also deploying troops. It's very worth pointing out that we're entering week 4 of this war, right? We had the first 7 days, then 14, then 21. Now we're entering week 4 of this war, and Donald Trump is just now deploying more troops to the Middle East. The reports are it could take them 10 days to get to the Middle East, and then who knows how long this operation will take, meaning we are blowing past the 4 to 6 week timeline that Trump gave out. This is going to be another endless war, and what does Trump have to say for himself?
Militarily won in Iran? What did you mean by that? He said the war was militarily won in Iran. What did you mean by that?
Oh, I think we've won. We've knocked out their Navy, their Air Force. We've knocked out their anti-aircraft. We've knocked out everything. We're roaming free. From a military standpoint, all they're doing is clogging up the strait. But from a military standpoint, they're finished.
So how much longer does the American...
Okay, wait a minute. From a military standpoint, all they're doing is clogging up the strait, meaning they still do have military capacity. And they just struck a few other countries yesterday. They're also flying drones and still doing attacks. So they clearly still have the means. But what Trump's saying here... I don't find it convincing that destroying other countries' military capabilities in the short term is somehow winning. The reality is there is an enormous cost, not just monetarily, but in terms of human lives and sacrifice in order to do a war like this. Enormous costs. And if you're going to say that now the benefit of this war is that Iran can't use some ships that they already weren't using, that Iran can't use some drones that they already weren't using. The Strait of Hormuz was already open. We already had passageway through that. Our win is just temporarily setting back their military. I feel like this is going to end in it's going to turn into a treadmill of a perpetual war. We're going to be in perpetuity striking them every 8 months because they're going to rebuild. Then we're going to strike them, then we're going to rebuild. The only way to actually enact regime change would be boots on the ground, which is what Trump is kind of planning, but that would be catastrophic. I've explained this a few times, but boots on the ground would necessitate sending troops into a place that is 4 times larger than Iraq. It's got 3 times the population, twice the size of the military, and it's surrounded by mountains, so it's just geographically impossible to invade a country like this. But I don't even think Trump knows that. I don't even think Trump knows anything. He's playing it by ear. He's blown up peace deals that were about to happen. This motherfucker is lifting sanctions on the countries that we're at war with. We're giving them more money. Like, we cannot go without calling this shit out. The U.S. is going to allow Iran to get $14 billion in oil revenue. Russia is getting billions of dollars per day in oil revenue directly using that money to make the world more dangerous place. What happened to America
first? It was never America first.
We are helping our enemies consolidate their power and wealth.
In his mind, America is the reason why.
And I'm sick of Donald Trump's handling of this.
He didn't win his second term when he was planning on implementing this stuff.
I hope you guys can watch it.
Yeah. He had a plan to do this 4 years ago. And that's why he was going to force his way into back in there and wasn't going to leave and started that insurrection. Look here, y'all. This man ain't playing with them at all. Oh, let me hit the volume. They got missiles and stuff coming in their apartments or houses or whatever, however they living. Y'all hear that? Please hit the like button. Somebody's sitting right here. She just gets up and go into another room. She don't hit the flow or nothing.
This drug addict over here, she's literally nodding out in a court hearing. Do you know who that is? Oh, that's Ben.
That's who?
It's an AR.
Oh, I done moved it. God dang, who was that? That was look like that was Bibi Netanyahu's wife.
When curiosity.
That lady just up and just goes into the other room. They don't hit the flow or nothing. Y'all. Isn't that crazy?
In which he said, well, history proves that, unfortunately and unhappily, Jesus Christ has no advantage over Genghis Khan. Because if you are strong enough,
he put his mouth on Jesus,
powerful enough, evil will overcome good. Aggression will overcome moderation.
James 2:7 says, do not they blaspheme that worthy name by which you are called. A question
that's
to the Christians out there,
a blasphemy.
Why halt ye between two opinions? How do you continue to support a nation whose leader blasphemes our God?
In which he said, well, history proves that,
and our money,
unfortunately and unhappily, Jesus Christ
he lost his life
over Genghis Khan. Because if you are strong enough, ruthless enough, powerful enough, evil will overcome good. Aggression will overcome moderation.
James 2:7 says, do not they blaspheme that worthy name by which you are called. A question to the Christians out there, why halt ye between two opinions? How do you continue to support a nation whose leader blasphemes our God?
In which he said,
and then they said, I showed y'all earlier today that their lawmakers want to impose an automatic 2 years if
Jesus
you
Christ has no
discuss or
because if you are
worship
enough, ruthless enough,
the gospel
enough,
of Jesus Christ,
evil will overcome good.
If you went on spring break and you said,
hold on, I'm trying to get to one. I'm trying to get to. Oh yeah, one of our come on. Oh Lord. But he want us to think we winning. They said this is the second one. This is the second US F-35 reportedly been hit. The second.
Watch this clip. Moses died. How many men I leave their purpose partner? Because that, not because that.
Hold on, let me get back to. Yeah, this is what time is it? Oh man, let me go back over there. What was the other one? I want to try to hear this woman. Japanese.
I will never set foot in the United States again. This trip to the White House was the most humiliating meeting of my political career. As the Prime Minister of Japan, I traveled to the United States with full sincerity to meet with our ally, only to be met with a series of disrespectful and dismissive treatments. Upon my arrival at the White House, they did not even prepare an official welcome ceremony. I was made to enter discreetly through a side entrance. as if we were
a side interest.
I will never set foot in the United States again. This trip to the White House was the most humiliating meeting of my political career. As the Prime Minister of Japan, I traveled to the United States with full sincerity to meet
Pressure,
with
you
our
know
allies,
he don't know what he
only to be
doing.
met with a series of disrespectful and dismissive
He
treatment.
absolutely
Upon
do
my
not
arrival
know
at the
what
White
he's
House,
doing.
they did not even prepare an official welcome ceremony. I was made to enter discreetly through a side entrance, as if we were nothing more than insignificant visitors. What
But then he
infuriated
want
me
them to
even
help
more was that Trump
him
openly joked about the Pearl Harbor
open up
attack
the
right in
Strait
front
of
of me, showing complete disregard
Hormuz.
for how embarrassed I would be. During the subsequent talks, Trump firmly demanded that we must cooperate with the United States in its military operations against Iran. He even used Japan's crude oil supply as leverage to coerce Japan into getting involved in an irrelevant war. In this so-called ally meeting, I saw no negotiation or respect whatsoever, only one-sided humiliation and demands. I will never set foot in the United States again.
Do y'all blame
I
her?
will never set foot in the United States again. This trip to the White House was the most humiliating meeting of my political
But he
career.
asking them
As the
for
Prime
help,
Minister
y'all.
of Japan, I traveled to the United States with full sincerity to meet with our allies, only to be met with a series of disrespectful and dismissive treatments. Upon my arrival at the White House, they did not even prepare an official welcome ceremony. I was made to enter discreetly through a side entrance, as if we were nothing more than insignificant visitors. What infuriated me even more was that Trump openly joked about the Pearl Harbor attack right in front of me, showing complete disregard for how embarrassed I would be. During the subsequent
Total
talks,
disrespect.
Trump firmly demanded that we must cooperate with the United States in its military operations against
She
Iran.
must
He even used
cooperate.
Japan's crude oil supply as leverage to coerce Japan into getting involved in an irrelevant war. In this so-called ally meeting, I saw no negotiation or respect whatsoever, only one-sided humiliation and demands. I will never set foot in the United States again.
I don't blame her. I don't blame her at all. Hold on. Let me get over here. Okay. Yeah, please. I need to pause until I got 195 people in here. Can y'all hit the like button? Please. Y'all gonna make me hit the like button. Please. Hit the like button for Auntie Fee. I'm heavy voiced right now. Lord, heal my throat. Come on, y'all, hit the like button so we can move forward. Let's go. Double tap, double tap.
His own Secretary of State.
Oh, let me double check. Only 2 people has hit the like button. Double tap the face of your screen. Pump it up, pump it up. Support the platform. Get it up, get it up. Super chat, super sticker. Get a membership. Come on. You gonna talk crazy to that lady. Make jokes. Oh, Japan know, they really know about sneak attacks. I ain't never seen nothing like this, man. Hold on, where is it at? Come on, y'all. We got a ways to go. I need 50 people to hit it. And I think more Epstein files done came out.
His own secretary to send. You know, folks, I want you to sit with me for a moment. Just sit with this. It is day 22 of a war the American people were never really asked to approve. 22 days since Operation
ashamed to
Epic
be an
Fury
American
began.
at this time.
And tonight, as we speak, The United States has more than 50,000 troops deployed across the Middle East.
It's
The
hard.
Strait
It's
of
a hard pill to
Hormuz,
swallow.
through which 1/5 of the world's oil flows, is functionally shut down. Gas prices are surging. Our NATO allies have refused to send a single warship. And just hours ago, Iran fired 2
I like
intermediate
the
range
rabbi.
ballistic missiles.
Hold on. Let's hear the rabbi.
Iran, and only Jews saw this coming. Here's what the news isn't telling you. Iran didn't wake up one day and decide to fight America. They've been preparing for this exact moment for 20 years. They even ran a practice...
Including our president. This is why it's not America first. Pressure. This is why it's not America first. They have been planning this, including Trump. It was supposed to go down the second time in that first administration. Well, I'm trying to make him bigger. Let's go.
Lose the war against Iran, and only Jews saw this coming. Here's what the news isn't telling you. Iran didn't wake up one day and decide to fight America. They've been preparing... The United States is going to lose the war against Iran, and only Jews saw this coming. Here's what the news isn't telling you. Iran didn't wake up one day and decide to fight America. They've been preparing for this exact moment for 20 years. They even ran a practice war last year, just to study how America fights. While America was sleeping, Iran was plotting. But here's what they're actually doing. Iran is not trying to win on the battlefield. They don't need to. They're cutting off the food supply to the entire Gulf region. They're targeting water desalination plants. Saudi Arabia gets 60% of its water from desalination. One drone strike and 10 million people have no water in 2 weeks. No water means Saudi Arabia falls. Saudi Arabia falls means the petrodollar dies. Petrodollar dies means the American economy collapses from the inside, and it gets worse. America is spending millions of dollars to shoot down Iranian drones that cost $50,000 each. They're literally going broke trying to defend themselves. Oil just hit $92 per barrel. Brent crude up 9% in one day. Gas prices spiking 30 cents per gallon. This is economic warfare, not military warfare.
Welcome, Paul
Jews
Ward.
understand empires don't fall from bombs. They fall when currencies collapse. The petrodollar funded American power for 50 years. Iran knows this. One strike on Saudi water supply and it's over. Trump demands unconditional surrender. Iran says no.
But that means pressure. That means that our government is gonna have to make America first and move around Trump, because they know he is not following the Constitution. They know that he is breaking laws, and the only way that we gonna be first is if they take him out. They're gonna have to do their job before it's too late. Do he need one of them cocktails in his arms? You know, let us make the cocktail, huh? The elite edition, yeah.
This isn't a... But here's what they're actually doing. Iran is not trying to win on the battlefield. They don't need to. They're cutting off the food supply to the entire Gulf region. They're targeting water desalination plants. Saudi Arabia gets 60% of its water from desalination. One drone strike and 10 million people have no water in 2 weeks. No water means Saudi Arabia falls. Saudi Arabia falls means the petrodollar dies. Petrodollar dies means the American economy collapses from the inside, and it gets worse. America is spending millions of dollars to shoot down Iranian drones that cost $50,000 each. They're literally going broke trying to defend themselves. Oil just hit $92 per barrel. Brent crude up 9% in one day. Gas prices spiking 30 cents per gallon. This is economic warfare, not military warfare. Jews understand empires don't fall from bombs. They fall when currencies collapse. The petrodollar funded American power for 50 years. Iran knows this. One strike on Saudi water supply and it's over. Trump demands unconditional surrender. surrender. Iran says no deal, no ceasefire, no negotiation. This isn't a war America can win with bombs, and deep down they know it. Jews have watched this pattern destroy empires for centuries. Now the whole world gets to watch it happen in real time. If you want to learn how Jews make and invest money in 2026, comment Goldman, and I'll personally send you my full playbook. The United States is going to lose the war against Iran.
The doctor to lie.
Only Jews saw this coming. Here's what the news isn't telling you. Iran didn't wake up one day and decide to fight America.
Yeah, he wants the doctors to lie for him.
The United States is going to lose the war against Iran, and only Jews saw this coming. Here's what the news isn't telling you. Iran didn't wake up one day and decide to fight America. They've been preparing for this exact moment for 20 years. They even ran a practice war last year, just to study how America fights. While America was sleeping, Iran was plotting. But here's what they're actually doing. Iran is not trying to win on the battlefield. They don't need to. They're cutting off the food supply to the entire Gulf region. They're targeting water desalination plants. Saudi Arabia gets 60% of its water from desalination. One drone strike and 10 million people have no water in 2 weeks. No water means Saudi Arabia falls. Saudi Arabia falls means the petrodollar dies. Petrodollar dies means the American economy collapses from the inside, and it gets worse. America is spending millions of dollars to shoot down Iranian drones that cost $50,000 each. They're
Waste of money.
Going broke trying to defend themselves. Oil just hit $92 per barrel. Brent crude up 9% in one day. Gas prices spiking 30 cents per gallon. This is economic warfare, not military warfare. Jews understand empires don't fall from bombs. They fall when currencies collapse. The petrodollar funded American power for 50 years. Iran knows this. One strike on Saudi water supply and it's over. Trump demands unconditional surrender. Iran says no deal, no ceasefire, no negotiation. This isn't a war America can win with bombs, and deep down they know it. Jews have watched this pattern destroy empires for centuries. Now the whole world gets to watch it happen in real time.
In
if
real
you want
time.
to learn how Jews make and invest money in 20...
Let's get on back over here to Billy. Playing in our face. Let's go.
At Diego Garcia, a joint U.S.-UK military Middle East. The Strait of Hormuz, through which 1/5 of the world's oil flows, is functionally shut down. Gas prices are surging. Our NATO allies have refused to send
but there's a list of things that have to happen before he comes back.
Just hours ago, Iran fired 2 intermediate-range ballistic missiles at Diego Garcia, a joint U.S.-UK military base sitting 4,000 kilometers from Iranian soil. A base that has never
That was deep warrior.
in its entire history been targeted by a hostile nation. Now, the missiles didn't hit. One failed in flight, the other was intercepted. But let me tell you something. That is not the story. The story is that Iran just demonstrated a capability it publicly denied having. And the story behind the story, and we'll come back to this in a moment. The story is that Iran just demonstrated a capability it publicly denied having. And the story behind the story, and we'll come back to this in a moment, because it matters more than people realize, is that Vladimir Putin's Russia has been feeding Iran satellite intelligence on the exact locations of American ships, aircraft, and troops. This is not politics as usual.
I need to set up
this is the
another
safety
one
of the Republic. And
after
right
this,
now, from
of
where
the
I
signs
sit,
of the things that
the
need to
people running
happen
this
spiritually
cannot explain why we're in it,
before Christ
how
comes
it ends,
back.
or who's watching the back door while Russia walks right through it. Let's take this step by step. Now look, wars don't start on the day the first bomb drops. They start long before that. They start with the decisions nobody's paying attention to. And this one started years ago. When I was president,
I need to come back.
for dealing with Iran. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't a headline, but it kept the door open. Then in 2015, the Obama administration built on that work and negotiated the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal. Was it perfect? No. No agreement ever is. But it had verification. It had structure. It had buy-in from our European allies, from Russia, from China. It gave us eyes on Iran's nuclear program. And in 2018, President Trump walked away from it, just tore it up. No replacement, no alternative framework, just a withdrawal, and a bet that maximum pressure would bring Iran to its knees. Well, it didn't. What it brought was escalation, slow, grinding, predictable escalation. By June 2025, we had the 12-day war between Israel and Iran, inconclusive, bloody, and deeply destabilizing.
Hey, Helen. It's all
Diplomacy was
spiritual.
dead.
Don't get it twisted.
Back
Yeah, you
channels
missed a
were
lot
severed.
before this one, Pressure.
And the administration's response was not to rebuild them, but to issue ultimatums.
We went there.
You know, in my experience, ultimatums work when you've got leverage and a plan. Without both, they're just words that paint you into a corner. Then on February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched nearly 900 coordinated strikes on Iranian missile sites, air defenses, and military infrastructure. Defense Secretary Hegseth called it a strike on the shield of Iran's nuclear program. And I understand the logic, I do. But here's what concerns me. When you take diplomacy off the table, you don't get peace. You get a longer road to war. And that road led us right here, to day 22, with no off-ramp in sight, and a Russian president who sees opportunity in our exhaustion. Let me tell you something. This box we're in, we built it ourselves.
Wow.
One bad decision at a time. Now, this is where things start to get complicated, and I need you to follow me closely, because there are three things happening at once, and they're all connected. First, Russia's intelligence pipeline to Iran. Beginning around March 6, multiple U.S. intelligence sources confirmed that Moscow has been providing Tehran with satellite imagery showing the positions and movements of American troops, warships, and aircraft. This isn't a rumor. This is corroborated intelligence, and it expanded after the war began. On March 20th, just yesterday, Putin's envoy, Kirill Dmitriev, reportedly sat down with Witkoff and Kushner in Miami and proposed a deal. Russia stops sharing intelligence with Iran if the United States cuts off intelligence support to Ukraine. Now, the administration rejected that proposal, and I'm glad they did. But the offer itself tells you everything you need to know about Putin's game. He's not a mediator. He's a broker, trading one conflict for another. Second, the Diego Garcia strike. Iran launched 2 intermediate-range ballistic missiles at a base 4,000 kilometers away. One failed. One was intercepted. But here's the honest truth. The strike itself is less important than what it revealed. Iran publicly claimed its missile range capped at 2,000 kilometers. They just doubled it. And Diego Garcia, America's so-called unsinkable aircraft carrier in the Indian Ocean, was never supposed to be in range of anything. That calculus just changed for everyone. Third, the messaging collapse. Reuters is reporting that Trump has lost his mojo on war messaging. One day he says the war is militarily won. The next day he's talking about winding down. Meanwhile, thousands of additional Marines are deploying. He called NATO allies cowards. Analysts say he can't explain why we went to war or what comes next. Now connect these three threads. Putin's timing emboldened Iran. Iran's strike revealed capabilities that changed the strategic math. And the White House can't hold a coherent narrative. That's not just a communications problem. It's a leadership vacuum. Let me tell you something from experience. When you sit in the Oval Office and you send Americans into harm's way, you own every part of that decision, every part. The planning, the execution, the communication, the exit, all of it. You don't get to own the victory and outsource the blame. When I made the decision to intervene in Bosnia, in Kosovo, when we launched strikes against Iraq in 1998, we asked ourselves three questions every single time. What are we trying to achieve? How do we know when we've achieved it? And how do we get out? If you can't answer all three, you're not ready. You may think you're ready. You may feel ready, but you're not. Now, what I'm seeing with this administration deeply concerns me. President Trump launched Operation Epic Fury without a clear exit strategy. He did not secure broad allied support beforehand. His own Secretary of State was contradicted, but you're not. Now, what I'm seeing with this administration deeply concerns me. President Trump launched Operation Epic Fury without a clear exit strategy. He did not secure broad allied support beforehand. His own Secretary of State was contradicted publicly about whether Israel's strike on the South Pars gas field was coordinated with Washington. He told the American people this would be a short excursion. We are now in week 3. Oil is surging. The Strait of Hormuz is effectively closed. Allies are sitting on the sidelines. And 6 American service members have been killed in Kuwait. We've got to remember, leadership isn't about the announcement. It's about the follow-through. It's about the day after and the week after and the month after. And right now, the follow-through is missing. The signals are contradictory. You cannot tell your troops the mission is almost done while simultaneously surging reinforcements. You cannot tell the world the war is won while Iran is firing missiles at your most remote base. That kind of dissonance doesn't just confuse allies and enemies, it puts lives at risk. And that, to me, is the most serious failure of all. Now I want to talk about something that doesn't get enough attention in the cable news cycle, and that's the institutional damage. Because wars don't just break things overseas, they break things at home too. They break trust, they break alliances, they break the systems we built to prevent exactly this kind of overreach. Start with our alliances. NATO countries refuse to deploy warships to secure the Strait of Hormuz. Now, that's not because they don't care about energy security. Of course they do. It's because they weren't consulted before the war began. And for 14 months before that, they'd been publicly belittled by this administration. Our alliances aren't just nice to have. They're force multipliers. They're what separates American leadership from American isolation. When you call your allies cowards and then ask them to guard a strait for you, don't be surprised when the phone doesn't ring. Look at the UK. They authorized only defensive use of Diego Garcia, a narrow mandate that's now under enormous pressure after Iran directly targeted that base.
Hey, Lawrence.
European diplomats are telling us privately that Putin's intelligence for Ukraine swap proposal is designed to fracture the transatlantic alliance, and it's working. Then there's the constitutional question. Congress has not formally authorized this war. We have a War Powers Act for a reason. It exists because the founders understood that the decision to go to war is too grave, too consequential, to rest in the hands of one person. Now, I know every president pushes the boundaries of executive authority. I did too. But this is a full-scale military campaign against a sovereign nation involving 50,000 troops, and Congress has not voted. That should concern every American, Republican, Democrat, Independent. Because if we allow the institutions that check executive power to erode in wartime, we may not get them back in peacetime. And that is where this gets dangerous. Now, here's where I want to be really direct with you, because this part frustrates me more than anything else. Vladimir Putin is playing a sophisticated multi-front strategy. He's providing Iran with intelligence to keep the United States bogged down in a war.
I'm for whoever is, don't take money from APEC.
He offered a deal that pits Iran against Ukraine, forcing impossible trade-offs. While the world watches the Middle East, pressure on him in Ukraine eases. And here's the part that should make every American furious. The administration eased sanctions on Russian oil to try to calm energy markets destabilized by the very war they started. So Putin is helping our adversary, and we're giving him an economic lifeline at the same time.
Say that again, Bill.
Let me say that again.
Yeah.
Russia is destabilized by the very war they started. So Putin is helping our adversary, and we're giving him an economic lifeline at the same time. Let me say that again. Russia is sharing satellite intelligence with Iran about the location of American troops,
money.
And we are easing sanctions on Russian oil.
And now,
if that doesn't tell you,
Iran,
furious. The administration eased sanctions on Russian oil to try to calm energy markets destabilized by the very war they started. So Putin is helping our adversary, and we're giving him an economic lifeline
and he's
at the same time. Let me say that again. Russia is sharing satellite intelligence with Iran about the location of American troops, and we are easing sanctions on Russian oil. If that doesn't tell you the strategy has gone sideways, I don't know what will. Vladimir Putin didn't need to fire a single bullet.
Right.
He just had to wait for the right moment, offer the right deal, and let the contradictions. And we are easing sanctions on Russian oil. If that doesn't tell you the strategy has gone sideways, I don't know what will. Vladimir Putin didn't need to fire a single bullet.
Not one.
He just had to wait for the right moment, offer the right deal, and let the contradictions do the work.
And the right dummy. Right, Teresa.
That's not strength on our part. That's a man playing chess while we're playing checkers.
Hell, he playing jacks.
And here's where
he ain't even on the board.
Trump's base is beginning to fracture. Prominent voices in the MAGA movement are openly questioning the war. Gas prices are eating into household budgets. Republican strategists are worried about November. And when a president starts losing his own coalition on a war, the temptation is to escalate, to create a bigger moment that rallies support.
Yep.
That's a dangerous instinct. Wars should never be extended for political convenience. We've got to remember, foreign policy
Trump
is not a
being played
campaign
once
rally.
again by Russia.
The stakes are real.
Oh, he being
The
played
lives
by
are real. And right now, the strategy is not matching the
Israel
stakes.
as well.
So let's talk about where this goes, because that's really what matters now.
And Iran,
And I
if
see
sanctions
three
are being
realistic
lifted,
paths. The first is escalation.
he being played all the way around. They
The
running
US
circles around and
intensifies
laughing at
strikes,
him.
possibly seizes Karg Island, maybe deploys ground forces along Iran's coast.
At our
That path
expense.
risks a long-term military commitment that the American public does not support and that our allies will not join. It could provoke Russia to move beyond intelligence sharing into something more direct. And it brings us closer to the kind of open-ended military engagement we swore after Iraq we would never repeat. The second is declare victory and walk away. Trump says the mission is accomplished, pulls back, takes a bow.
This is
But what
not
does
a
that
time
leave
to
behind?
pick sides.
A wounded,
This is a
hostile
time
Iran
to become
that
independent.
just proved it can hit
Back
targets
again.
4,000 kilometers away. A Strait of Hormuz that remains vulnerable. Gulf allies who feel abandoned. And an Iranian regime that, even without its top leaders, has every incentive to pursue a crude nuclear weapon as the only guarantee against future attack. The third path, and this is where things get difficult, is a negotiated off-ramp, diplomacy. Now, President Trump himself acknowledged the problem. With Iran's top leadership killed in targeted strikes, there may be, as he put it, nobody to talk to. Russia and China have positioned themselves as intermediaries, but their interests don't align with ours. Building a negotiated outcome would require reconstructing the very diplomatic architecture this administration spent years dismantling. And yet, that is the only responsible path.
This is sad. Putin
It's the
never liked
hardest.
us
It requires
because we wouldn't
patience,
allow
humility,
them to join
multilateral
NATO.
trust building, and a willingness to talk to people you'd rather not talk to. I know because I've done it. At Camp David, I sat
He
across a
thought Putin
table
was
from
his
people
friend.
whose histories were soaked in conflict. It didn't work perfectly, but you show up, you do the work, because the alternative is worse. The Diego Garcia strike, even though it failed, has changed the threat calculus for every nation with military assets in the Indian Ocean. That reality isn't going away. We need statecraft, not just firepower. Let me close with this, and I want to speak not as a Democrat, not as a former president, but as someone who loves this country. Right now, there are more than 50,000 American men and women deployed in a war zone. 6 service members have already given their lives.
More than
In
that.
Kuwait, far from home, serving a mission they were told would be short. Their families deserve clarity. They deserve honesty. They deserve a government that has a plan, not just a press conference. This war was launched without broad public debate.
That he won't even take
It was
answers.
launched without adequate allied consultation.
Because he don't have answers.
It was launched without congressional authorization. And that should concern every single American, regardless of party. Because the question isn't whether Iran poses a threat. It does. The question is whether we responded in a way that makes us safer, stronger, and more united. And right now, the honest answer is, I'm not sure we did. But I refuse to end on despair. And here's why. I've watched this country go through things that would have broken most nations. I've watched it survive constitutional crises, economic collapses, wars that went wrong, and leaders who fell short.
And
every single time, what saved us wasn't one person in the Oval Office. It was the system. The press asking hard questions. The courts doing their job. The Congress, when it finds its courage, asserting its authority. The American people demanding accountability. Here's the honest truth. We've been through worse. But we got through it because we held on to the things that make us who we are. The rule of law, the strength of our alliances, the idea that power must always be accountable to the people it serves. That's not Republican or Democrat. That's American. And if we remember that, if we hold on to that, we'll find our way through this too.
I got another live set up for 12.
But we've got to start now.
For 12:15.
And we've got to start by telling
the truth. Oh, I knew that was it.
Thank you for listening.
Okay, y'all, I got another one set up for 12:15, 12:20. You should be able to see it, and then we're gonna even go off into some of what God says, what the word say, and what has to happen before Christ comes back. I predict that the oil will rise. Woo, not 300. Oh, don't take breath away. Come back. I got another live set up. And we're going to listen to the rabbi. We're going to listen to the Jewish rabbi. I'll be back.